Greetings to all of my friends. Today with AstroTransit Software, I am going to take up the chart by which I will be showing that how easily you can predict the event for any individual based upon Cuspal Interlink, which was propounded by Mr. Bhaskarn of Chennai. I will take a real lifetime chart of Mr. Sushant Singh. As everybody knows that he did suicide on 14th of June 2020. Cuspal Interlink pinpoints exactly the situation of any birth chart with reference to any type of the event. Slowly, I will be doing many of the events. Today, I am taking the event of suicide. Whether a chart promises or shows suicide in one's life and how this suicide will occur, whether he will commit suicide inside the house or outside the residence. That is to say, what would be the mode of death? And can you pinpoint the timing of the death? These are few of the things which we will take through Cuspal Interlink. As I already told you, the basics of the Cuspal Interlink, I would request all of my viewers to go through the preliminary videos of Cuspal Interlink part 1, part 2, which I have already shared on my YouTube channel. You can like and subscribe my YouTube channel so that you are able to get the latest notifications of this channel. Plus, you can clear the basics of any type of astrology related with the Cuspal Interlink, KP astrology, as well as the Nadi astrology. All these streams of astrology, I would be trying to explain with the AstroTransit software, which covers these three methods, Cuspal Interlink, KP astrology, as well as Nadi astrology. Today, I am going to take up the real life chart of Sushant Singh in order to give you the overview that with Bhaskarn Paddhati or CIL, Cuspal Interlink, how we can exactly predict any event of an individual. So this is Sushant Singh's chart. You can see that this chart, date of birth is 9th March 1972. The timing is 7:22, Bijnor, UP, India. Of course, on net, you will get different date of birth of Mr. Sushant Singh. You will also get the place of birth as Patna, but I have taken Bijnor. You will get the timing as 12 a.m. or 2:15 p.m. I have taken as 7:22 evening, and this has been taken from a very reliable source. That is why it is category A, and the chart has been taken from the details have been taken from AstroDentist website, where there are authentic records, and this particular date of birth has been shared by Mr. Sushant Singh's friend. So it is highly reliable. 9th March 1972 is the date of birth we have taken. So let's go ahead. But before that, we will be testing since this particular video is based upon the Cuspal Interlink theory. So we will be testing three major parameters of CIL. That is the rule for suicide. Another one is the rule for unexpected death. And last one, we will be touching upon the death at residence. These are the three rules which we will be testing upon. For suicide, your Cuspal sublord of the first house should be the significator of 1 and 8 along with Mars. Somewhere you can note it down, though I will be telling you again and again. For unexpected death, your cuspal sublord of 8 should signify 1, 8, and 2. Okay. So if it is connected with 2, the person has the problem of communication, respiratory parts of the body. So he's not able to communicate his problem to others. And once the cuspal sublord, which is connected with different planets, which are signifying 1 and 8, will jointly cause death during DBAS, Dasha Bhukti Antara and Shuksh. That also we will see. That means those planets which are linked with the 8th house, as they are signifying 1st and 8th, they will cause the death. And during the time period of Dasha Bhukti Antara Sukshma, these planets will give the death to the individual. Another last one, the rule which we will check, according to Mr. Bhaskarn, the death will happen in the residence if the 8th sublord is linked with 4, 6, and 12. 4, 6, and 12, the death will occur at the residence. If suppose you are more interested in the rules of Cuspal Interlink or Bhaskarn Paddhati, you can refer the book Bhaskarn Astrologics of Cuspal Interlink. Okay, so this is available directly from him. You can contact him and you will get the book from there. All right, so firstly we will take up the suicide part. It's very clear, the sublord of the first house should signify 1 and 8, and it should be linked with Mars. So let us see that. We will cast the chart and we will try to see the Cuspal Interlink. We will go to the Cuspal. Here we have all the systems, the KP astrology, the Nadi coordinates, the Cuspal Interlink. So we are more interested in the Cuspal Interlink. So we will go straight away to the Cuspal Interlink. You can see here the first rule which we are going to check is the suicide part. The first sublord should signify 1 and 8 and Mars. So let us see that your first sublord, let me highlight the things, then it will be more clear. Your first sublord is Venus, and your Venus is in the star of Ketu and is in the sub of Saturn, and it is signifying, Venus is signifying 8th house. This Venus is signifying 8th house. If we go further and try to see the planet interlink, we will find that Venus is not only signifying 8th house, but is also the sublord of 1st house, and it is residing in the 8th house. Venus is the sublord of 1st house and it is residing in the 8th house. If you see Venus, it is residing in the 8th house and it is the sublord of 1st house, this one. So our condition that for suicide, the first sublord should signify 1st and 8th is getting satisfied. And second most important thing, I had told you that it has to be linked with Mars. So if we see further, we will find that Venus is linked with Mars. First house is actually linked with Mars because the star lord of Venus, that means Mars, is in the star of Venus. Therefore, the first sublord is actually linked with Mars. So our condition is satisfied that this person is actually destined to commit suicide. Second most important thing, that his death was actually unexpected death. Everybody was surprised because he had committed suicide. So for this, we need to see that 8th sublord should signify 1 and 8. For sudden death, as per Bhaskarn Paddhati, 8th sublord should signify 1 and 8. So let us see whether it is signifying that or not. So if we go further here, 8th sublord is your, let us firstly see the 8th sublord. 8th sublord is Jupiter. Jupiter should signify 1 and 8. So let us see whether it is signifying or not. So if we see the 8th sublord, Jupiter is signifying 8th house. Unexpected death, sudden death, it is signifying 8th house. So you can see Jupiter is signifying 8th here and 8th here. That is point number 2. Second last important point is that if the person commits suicide at home, what are the houses which need to be active? Let us see that. As per the rule of CIL, if the person death is at residence, 4th, 6th and 12th house should be active. Should be active or should promise that. That means the 8th sublord should signify 4, 6 and 12, then only the death will occur at the residence. So let us see, the 8th sublord is Jupiter, that we have already seen. 8th sublord is Jupiter. 4, 6 and 12 it should signify. So it is signifying 4th house. And if we see Jupiter here, Jupiter signifying 8th house, signifying 12th house, signifying 12th house. And it is also signifying 4th house. So more or less, the condition of having the death at the residence is being satisfied. Now further, if we go, we need to see that the planets which are linked through 8th house should give death. So let us see firstly the 8th house sublord. 8th house sublord, if we see, your 8th house sublord is Jupiter. Okay. And Jupiter is signifying 8th house very strongly, that I have already shown you. It is signifying 8th house very strongly. This 8th, right? And Therefore, we can see that how the Jupiter is linked with each other. Jupiter is linked with the 8th house sublord. Jupiter is linked with firstly the Saturn, it is linked with Saturn. If you see, it is also linked with Sun, and if we see here, Jupiter is also linked with Mercury, so Jupiter is linked with Saturn and Mercury. So let us see the Dasha also. We will take up the Dasha. If you see the Dasha, the death occurred on 14th of June 2020. June 2020. So the Dasha was running Rahu, Jupiter, Mercury, and Jupiter. So this occurred on 14th of June 2020. So you can see Rahu, Jupiter, Mercury, and Jupiter. And all of these planets, they are signifying 8th house. Let us make it very clear so that let's make it unexpected death. And then we see the So 14th of June 2020 will give us so we will be here. So 1 and 8 it should signify. So Rahu you can see is signifying 8th house. If we see through normal KP principle, Jupiter is signifying, its sub is signifying the 1st house, its sub star is signifying the 8th house. Mercury is signifying at the star level the 8th house, the 1st house, and at the sub level again the 8th house very strong. Antara is very strong, 8th house. And then once we see the Sukshma, again it is signifying the 1st house and the 8th house. So more or less it is clear that it is going to give suicidal tendency to this Jataka. So that means what? The planets which are connected with the 8th house are actually giving the death. The Jupiter, the Mercury. Since Rahu Dasha is very long, so we are not taking Rahu as the thing, because the Rahu has only activated from 2016 and it will run actually till 2021. It was scheduled to run, so that we have taken. So Jupiter and Mercury and Jupiter, they are going to give the death. They have given the death to this person. So let us clarify it again. If we see the Cuspal Interlink again, so you will find this situation. 8th house connection, 8th house sublord. Your 8th house sublord is Jupiter, and Jupiter, we zeroed down to Mercury as well as the Jupiter. So if you see, Jupiter is actually connected with Mercury at the sublord level. It is connected with Mercury. You see here it is connected with Mercury, showing the 12th house. And if we go further and try to see the sublord position, you will find here that first sublord, the 8th sublord Jupiter is connected with Sun and Saturn, but here it has activated Mercury. So that's how we can predict any event of any native with very simple rules of the Cuspal Interlink. I hope you must have enjoyed the video of Cuspal Interlink series. Those who are not clear with the basics, they should get themselves accustomed with Cuspal Interlink series 1 and series 2 video. And for getting the software of AstroTransit, you can get in touch with me on WhatsApp 988 9922 325. Thank you very much.